Thank you for joining us for video 2 of our interview series. My name is Anthony George. I'm a business advisor at the Delaware Small Business Development Center. At the SBDC, we deliver training and free professional consulting services to help startups and existing small businesses formulate and execute strategies to grow and succeed. I am developing this interview series to provide practical advice to small businesses interested in learning how to do business with a large company. I'm happy to introduce today's expert, David Clunes. David is a veteran of several successful business ventures in a varied set of industries, including healthcare, technology, construction, retail, and real estate. His diverse experience includes serving small businesses and Fortune 500 companies alike. Thank you for joining us today, David.
Good to be here.
I want to start off with our first question. Please describe your small business history and your respective enterprise clients.
Good to be here with you, Anthony. Well, the business I think that's most relevant to this conversation today is my previous business, the Encima Group. We work mainly with Fortune 500 pharmaceutical clients. We did have a couple of clients in other industries as well. But that business was a small business, growing business. It was on the Inc. 5000 for 4 years in a row. And our enterprise clients included companies like Bristol Myers Squibb, Sanofi Aventis, AstraZeneca, Shire Pharmaceuticals, Merck, AbbVie, Morgan Lewis, and others.
Okay, thank you. For my next question is a three-part question. How long did it take you to break into decision makers at an enterprise client, generate your first sale, and then what path did you take to get there?
So that's an interesting question. For some of the clients, it took quite some time, year plus. But what I did found was that the easiest path was word of mouth. The most difficult path, of course, was going through procurement, especially for a small company. But having a relationship or establishing a relationship with decision makers smooths the path to engaging with an enterprise client. Those relationships don't have to be senior level, by the way. They can be with middle management who have discretionary budgets to spend on a variety of services. Typically, there's a threshold below which they can make spending decisions on their own, where scrutiny by higher ups or procurement is not required. So a good approach to getting into some of these enterprise clients is to gaining entry is to understand those thresholds and to keep initial engagements below that threshold so that the decision making remains in the hands of your contact, the one you have a relationship with.
Okay, and just bridging off of that answer, based on my research, it seemed like there was a trend towards more centralization in procurement, away from middle management towards a procurement department. Do you think that should be a concern for small business?
That should absolutely be a concern because you're absolutely right. I saw the same trend as well. And so you don't become stagnant. If you've made inroads into a company, continue to make efforts to make further inroads, particularly up the food chain, as it were, to make relationships, develop relationships with those higher up in the organization, become familiar with procurement and what their requirements are. And as you see that change that you discussed unfolding, you want to make sure that you're making moves to position yourself so that you can take advantage of that. Procurement in that environment is key.
Okay, thank you. So assuming that you are in the door, can you describe formal vetting that a large company would perform before you started as a vendor? And also specifically, do they require information regarding cybersecurity plans or business continuity plans?
Yeah, so for large opportunities or when the level of business that you're doing with an existing client reaches a certain level, procurement is certainly going to get involved. And they're going to have additional vetting that they'll want you to get involved in. They'll have additional thresholds that they'll want you to overcome. It's going to include such things as what you mentioned, providing financial statements to show the viability of the business, proof of other clients, right? To show that you are not totally dependent on them as a client. That's a big red flag in their mind. Obviously, that's a challenge for many small businesses, particularly when you're just starting out with one client, right? They like other client references, which can be difficult again when you're just getting started. But as the question suggests, um, demonstrating robust approaches to cybersecurity, business continuity, data security, et cetera, are often required. And again, this can be difficult for a small organization, but no need to allow those requirements to stop you. Use those opportunities to develop plans in those categories that were mentioned if you don't have them. And frankly, there are lots of widely available templates that you can use to answer those questions as you are best able. And even if you don't do a good job the first time, it gives you practice for the next opportunity that you have. It puts you in a much better position to be able to have a more effective response and possibly win the business.
Okay, thank you. And bridging off of that question, did all of your large customers have similar requirements, or did you find that some were different than others?
I found the differences to be quite wide. Some businesses were further ahead with regard to what they were doing with procurement, and similar to the question you asked previously with regard to centralizing and having a bit more control. Others were well behind that, and they had much of the authority and autonomy out in the hands of middle management and others. So the differences can be quite wide. Frankly, if you're making a concerted effort to get into some of these larger organizations, it might make sense to make a determination as to which of these organizations are a little behind the curve. They're going to be a bit easier to get into than the ones that are a bit more advanced.
Okay, great. So for my next question, what did you learn from your first enterprise client? And then also, was securing that initial client helpful in adding future clients?
I'll start with the second part of the question first. I'll say that the securing the first client being helpful and getting the second one, absolutely, very helpful. It demonstrates to the next client that you're able to deliver an enterprise solution of some size, right? Additionally, you have references now at a large organization that you can share with the new company. And additionally, as individual clients that you interact with at your overall client, your enterprise client, as they change organizations, you have the opportunity of working with them at their new organization because they're familiar with you. And if you've done quality work, they want to be able to bring that work along with them in their new engagement. So what did I learn? First part of your question, what did I learn from the first enterprise client? And I think I may be getting a little ahead of myself here, but one of the things became clear was that the individuals we're dealing with inside these organizations, they're often very interested in moving up the corporate ladder, and they want to look good. So they want to make sure that the vendor they're bringing in is going to reflect well on them. That makes a big difference. And so it's important to be able to understand what their goals are internally so that what you're doing for them is going to help them internally achieve their goals. And the way you present your offering, make sure that it aligns with what they're trying to achieve. That puts you in a much better position to be able to get into the organization, as well as to expand the work and opportunities that you have with them.
Okay, thank you for that. On my next question, I just want to talk a little bit more about the RFP process.
Mhm.
Did your clients utilize a formal RFP process? And if so, did they have any ongoing compliance requirements?
So often they do. And again, this gets back to what I was talking about before with middle management having discretionary funds. So for opportunities of a meaningful size, typically those opportunities would go through an RFP process. And if you wanted to participate in those bigger opportunities, you'd have to find a way to get engaged in that way. So frankly, the procurement organizations will send RFPs out to organizations they are aware of. So part of the process means that you have to register with these enterprise organizations as a vendor with certain capabilities that you bring to the table. But candidly, the RFP opportunities, they're difficult to win, right? Especially as a small organization competing against large ones. One of the things I'd often hear is that no one gets fired for hiring IBM, right? Or, one of the larger consulting organizations. When they bring in a small organization, a small company, it's a risk that they're taking. So you've got to be able to present yourself in such a way that it's compelling, and there's a strong reason why they would go with you over, one of the bigger companies that might provide a similar service. But what I will say about the RFP responses is that they are time and resource intensive, often requiring weeks to develop a meaningful response. And in my experience, the win rate was low. I think most smaller companies are going to find a similar experience. So you've got to be able to balance the level of effort against the potential win, right? Smaller organization, you don't have dedicated resources that can spend time responding to RFPs. So you've got to balance whether or not the opportunity is worth spending the time responding to the opportunity that's put in front of you.
Okay. And the next question is, how quickly were you paid by a large customer on average?
Oh my goodness. So the terms can be, 60 to 90 days. And oftentimes they expect you to bill for the work after the fact. So, and usually in month increments, right? So what that means is you're talking effectively 90 to 120 days, and you've got to be able to carry those costs for that time period. So, when you're looking at the possibility of going into a large enterprise, you've got to think about all of that. Do we have the capabilities, maybe a line of credit or other facilities that gives me the opportunity to be able to carry cost for 60, possibly 120 days.
Okay. And my next question is, let's say you're actively pursuing large clients. When do you know when it's not worth continuing with the respective client to pursue that client?
They will often give you signals, right? If you're having a difficult time getting a response from the procurement contacts or those running the RFP, and if the outlines of the opportunity are fairly specific, that can give you an indication that it may be difficult for you to win the opportunity, and you may want to consider other opportunities. I'll tell you something that goes on often is that the organization may have in mind already who they want to use, and they may engage in conversations with that organization that allows them to craft the RFP specific to the capabilities of that large organization. And you can often tell that based on how the RFP is structured and written. Again, with regard to how specific and detailed it is. If it's fairly open-ended, then there's an opportunity there, and the organization is truly looking to see who can provide the best solution. And you'll have a better chance with those types of RFPs than ones that are a bit more granular and specific. At least that's my perspective.
Okay, great. And the last question is if you can introduce us to your current business that you're operating right now.
Sure. So my last business, as you mentioned, catered towards large enterprises, Fortune 500 companies. The new business, Curucaye, is geared towards small businesses, small to mid-sized companies. And we provide business operation services to small and mid-sized companies. Our tagline is, do what you do best, outsource the rest. And the reason for creating the company is having created a number of businesses myself, I thought there had to be a better way, because you often end up spending 60 to 80 plus hours a week on the business. And that takes a measure of joy away from the reason why you got into business to begin with. as well as it tends to take away time from some of the things that you should be spending as a business owner, more on strategic things, making sure clients are satisfied, etc. And so Curucaye is about providing services, particularly for the business owner, so that he or she can reclaim time in the business and can get quality operational services that can help them to grow and scale. So the services that we provide fall into a number of categories. We provide virtual assistants and virtual teams. We provide HR operations and 1099 management, digital marketing, accounting and bookkeeping, as well as cloud technology and remote office enablement. And what we're finding is that many of the small businesses out there desperately need those services. And of course, we're happy to provide them to them.
Okay, well, thank you very much for your time today. And thank you all for watching video 2 of our interview series. You can learn more about the Delaware SBDC at delawaresbdc.org. And you can learn more about David at curucaye.com. That's CURUCAYE.com. Thank you very much.
Thank you.